How would you react if you found out that Ferrari has found a way to be up to 10 kilometers per hour faster on the straight, without relying on DRS like everyone else, and that it secretly tested it at Monza, leaving the rest of the teams completely baffled? Because that is exactly what is happening right now. A technical trick that not only improves the car, but threatens to break the balance of the entire Formula One. It all begins with a situation that did not fit with what we had been seeing in Formula One until that moment, because Ferrari, despite showing itself as one of the fastest teams, had not managed to deliver that definitive blow that would allow it to place itself ahead of its direct rivals, especially in a context where other teams had managed to consolidate clear advantages in different types of circuit, which forced the Scuderia to make a decision that would completely change its development approach, abandon progressive evolution and bet on an aggressive, concentrated and risky leap that it was aimed at altering the competitive balance in one fell swoop. This change in mentality was not casual or improvised, it was a direct response to the pressure of the championship, to the need to close a gap that was already beginning to be worrying, and above all to the evidence that small improvements were not going to be enough to catch up with the leaders. So Ferrari decided to play a completely different card, preparing a package of updates so large that, in practice, it transformed the car into something almost new, something that within the paddock was already beginning to be described as half a redesigned car, a clear sign that they were not looking for compete. They were looking to change the rules of the game. And this is where Monza comes in as a key piece in this whole story, because Ferrari did not choose that circuit out of nostalgia or comfort. It chose it because it is the perfect environment to test extreme solutions without raising immediate suspicions. A route where top speed, aerodynamic efficiency and energy management are taken to the limit, which allows validating concepts that in other circuits would go unnoticed or would be impossible to measure accurately, and in that scenario using the 200 kilometers allowed by regulation in a filming day, Ferrari executed one of the most important tests of the entire season, collecting critical data without needing to show its true potential. Meanwhile, from the outside, everything seemed relatively normal, controlled laps, no visible changes in configuration, no times that drew excessive attention, but what was not visible to the naked eye was the true extent of the modifications they were evaluating, because the leaked images and subsequent analyses began to reveal that Ferrari had not only introduced new parts, but had modified multiple key areas of the car simultaneously, something extremely rare in the middle of the season, and which only makes sense when a team is convinced that it has found superior technical direction. This move began to generate noise within the paddock, first as rumors, then as real concern, because rival teams quickly understood that Ferrari was not simply evolving its car, it was testing a different concept, something that could give them a structural and not just circumstantial advantage. And in Formula One, when a team finds an advantage of this type, the problem is not only reaching it, it is that many times you arrive too late to react. And it is precisely here where the true impact of this story begins to take shape, because what Ferrari was hiding in Monza was not just another improvement, it was the basis of something much bigger, a concept that, once understood by the rest of the teams, would completely change the perception of who is really in control of the season. The key moment was not when Ferrari tested the car. It was when the other teams began to understand what they had really done, because up to that point, everything was suspicions, rumors, leaked images that left more questions than answers. But little by little the pieces began to fit within the paddock. And what they discovered was not a simple improvement, it was a completely different concept that attacked one of the most critical points of modern Formula One: efficiency on the straight without sacrificing downforce in corners. The initial reaction was one of disbelief, because the data that was beginning to circulate indicated something that did not make sense under traditional schemes. Ferrari was achieving clearly higher top speeds without showing the usual weaknesses in high load areas, which broke the classic balance between drag and downforce, that commitment that all teams have been optimizing for years without achieving such aggressive jumps. And that is where the real impact began, because when a team breaks that balance, it not only improves, it redefines the limit of what is possible. Engineers from different teams began to analyze every visible detail of the car, every image, every video frame, trying to decipher where the key was, but the focus quickly focused on the rear area, on that system that Ferrari had been developing in silence and that now showed its most refined version, the famous McLaren spoiler concept, which in this evolution not only worked better, but also eliminated the synchronization problems that had limited its previous versions, becoming a stable, predictable and, above all, extremely efficient system on a straight line. And this is where the impact becomes a real concern, because the teams understood that it was not about copying a part, but about replicating a complete philosophy of aerodynamic operation, something that cannot be solved with a quick update, something that requires redesigning how multiple elements of the car interact with each other, from the airflow to the electronic management that coordinates these systems, which means that Ferrari had not only found performance, it had created an advantage that was difficult to chase in the short term. Within teams like Mercedes or Red Bull, this generates an immediate effect. Internal doubts, re-evaluation of their own concepts, and, above all, an added pressure to react quickly without making mistakes, because in Formula One, reacting badly can be even worse than not reacting. And while they analyze, validate, and test new directions, Ferrari already has something that works, something proven, something ready to take to the race. But the most interesting thing about all this is that Ferrari has not yet shown its full potential, because what we saw at Monza occurred under restrictions, without being able to freely adjust settings, without fully exploiting the package, which leaves open an even more disturbing possibility for its rivals. That what they have seen so far is only a part of the true performance, a controlled version of something much more powerful. This is the point where the narrative changes completely, because Ferrari goes from being a chaser to becoming a direct threat, not only for pace but for innovation, and in a sport where tenths are everything, finding half a second of potential advantage through a technical concept is enough to change the fate of an entire season. And as teams try to understand, copy, or counter this trick, Ferrari gains something even more valuable than speed. Time to consolidate its advantage, time to further evolve its idea, and time to strike at the exact moment where the rest are still looking for answers. And this is where everything converges, because after the initial impact, after the analysis, after the teams understood that Ferrari had done something different, the most important moment of all arrives, when that trick stops being a theory and becomes a real threat on the track, a threat that can change the competitive order of Formula One in terms of races. Because the real danger for the rest is not only that Ferrari has more speed, it is that it now has a completely new strategic tool, an advantage that does not depend solely on the pure performance of the car, but on how it can use it in key moments, in qualifying to make differences that are impossible to match, in the race to defend itself without the need to degrade tires, or even to attack without entering risk windows. And this completely changes the dynamics of the fight on the track, because it forces rivals to compete in conditions that they do not control. What was once a battle of tenths now becomes a battle of concept, because while other teams continue to optimize what they already have, Ferrari has opened a different door, an alternative path that not only improves performance, but alters the way in which that performance is delivered, and that is much more difficult to neutralize, because it is not about going faster. It is about doing it in a way that others cannot immediately replicate. Within the paddock, this generates a chain reaction, emergency meetings, changes in roadmaps, pressure on the technical departments to find answers that probably will not arrive in time, because developing something like this is not a matter of weeks, it is a matter of months. And in that margin, Ferrari can build a sufficient advantage to condition the championship, especially on circuits where top speed makes clear differences. But there is an even more critical point, and it is psychological, because when a team introduces an innovation that others do not fully understand, internal trust is broken, doubts appear, previous decisions are questioned, and a phase is entered where the risk of making mistakes increases. And in Formula One, errors under pressure are paid dearly, both on the track and in development. Meanwhile, Ferrari finds itself in the opposite position, with a clear direction, with a validated concept, and with the confidence of knowing that they have found something that works, something that can evolve, and something that can continue to expand their advantage if they develop it correctly, and that allows them to not only compete, but control the pace at which the season evolves. And that's how a seemingly low-key test at Monza becomes the potential turning point of the championship, because what began as a regulation-limited experiment is now shaping up to be one of the biggest technical threats of the year, one that could redefine who leads, who chases, and who lags behind. Because in the end, the big question is no longer what Ferrari has done. The big question is whether anyone will be able to catch up with them before it's too late. And in the end, it all comes down to an idea that completely defines this moment in Formula One. Ferrari has not only improved its car, it has changed the way of understanding how performance can be gained in this era, because while the rest of the teams continued to optimize within the known limits, the Scuderia decided to break that framework and bet on a concept that right now places them in a completely different position on the grid. What we saw at Monza was not a simple test, it was a declaration of intent, a clear sign that Ferrari is willing to take risks to regain control, and most importantly, that they have found a technical direction that not only works, but can continue to evolve, which turns this trick into something much more dangerous as the races go by. The impact on the other teams is already evident, not only because of the initial surprise, but because of what it implies in the medium term, because now they are forced to decide between following their current path or trying to pursue an idea that they do not master. And that doubt, that reaction time, is precisely what Ferrari needs to consolidate its advantage and transform a specific innovation into a structural difference within the championship. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.